Hello, everybody, and welcome to Here's Why with Kevin Ortega-Rojas. I'm your host, Kevin Ortega-Rojas, and I am so excited to be back in the studio. We have a great show for you tonight, but first, let's catch up. It's been about a month since our last episode, which means it's been about 15 years in news cycles. A list of the best cities for polyamorous and open relationships was published online, so if your partner suddenly has the urge to move to Somerville, Massachusetts, well, you're in for a big surprise. Speaking of lists, CNN published an article titled The Most Exciting Trains Coming in 2024, and Raheem Shabazz took home the top spot for the third year in a row. That joke was for the gays. And speaking of gay, Stranger Things actor Noah Schnapp is under fire for a viral video where he was seen passing out stickers that read Zionism is sexy. In an apology video, Noah said that he was being misconstrued, and I get what he means. He was just catcalling Zionism. Maybe he wanted to smack it on the ass, but that's as far as he would take it. Next up, a police officer in St. Louis crashed into a gay bar and then arrested the owner. That's like when I get drunk, stumble home, wander into my apartment, crash into my coffee table, and yell, "Who put that there?" Alaska Airlines was a hot topic recently after an emergency door flew off mid-flight. After an internal investigation, authorities say that they found multiple loose bolts throughout the plane. They also found a Spirit Airlines branded wrench in the overhead compartment. Lawmakers in Kentucky introduced a bill that would legalize sex between first cousins. Kentucky, the state where you can't call someone by their preferred pronouns, but you can find your soulmate at the family reunion. And over the break, we got a blast from the not-too-distant past. Seriously, guys, can we please stop with the reboots and remakes already?
Get in, loser.
Oh, no, wait, I wasn't talking about Mean Girls. I was talking about this.
Former President Donald J. Trump will be the projected winner in the Iowa caucuses for the 2024 presidential election.
Yep, that's right. Donald Trump was victorious in the Iowa caucus, a day that marks the official beginning of the presidential election. Over the break, Trump also said that immigrants were poisoning the blood of our country, and I think that is an awful thing to say about his migrant wife and anchor baby son. And this week, during one of his many court appearances for his various criminal trials, when a judge asked a group of jurors if anyone felt Donald Trump was being treated unfairly, Trump raised his own hands. Geez, this guy thinks he's on the jury for his own fucking trial. You know, maybe we can just tell him he won and just let him know that the Oval Office has been remodeled. I don't think he would notice. And this week, after coming in third place in the Iowa caucus, Nikki Haley said that this had officially become a two-person race. She also said that America was never a racist country. Okay, wait, so she can't do math and she doesn't know history. Where'd she go to school? Florida? That is this week's monologue. When we come back, I will be joined by this week's panel to discuss trending news and headlines. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Here's Why. I am joined by this week's panel. First, we have with us comedian and activist Che Guerrero. And over to his left, we have a former political candidate and activist Hector Oseguera. And don't adjust your screens. This is not a Dominican support group. This is the first episode of Here's Why that is just full of Latinos. This has not happened yet. How are you guys?
Good. If this was like a Dominican support group, I feel the first thing we talk about is like the tin cookies that have needles in it. That's just, we were all fooled by
the
that.
one that never has cookies in it.
No, yeah. But then the day that you find cookies in it changes your whole life.
And
you realize, oh, these are for cookies. Yeah.
the butter container that just has like habichuelas in it. Oh my god. All right, so we are here to, first of all, thank you for being on the first episode of the year. We're here to talk about some trending topics, so let's get into it. We're gonna get all the serious stuff out of the way first.
Okay.
So the anti-Trump wing of the Republican Party is desperate for a new candidate, but it seems that Trump will undoubtedly be the nominee. He won 51% of the votes in the Iowa caucus, but Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley both won under 20% each. So do you think that either one of them would have had a chance at beating Trump if one of them had dropped out earlier?
I would say definitely not. There's no chance, because even if you take Haley and DeSantis together, they're not even half of what Trump has. Mm-hmm. We're going to come into New Hampshire and they're going to lose again. So there is no chance. You got a kid being offered a bowl of candy and a bowl of broccoli, and you're asking why the kid doesn't want the broccoli. Like, how can I make this broccoli more appealing? It's like the kid doesn't want the broccoli. They're not going to make you're not going to make the Trump base not choose Trump.
My question, though, is like, how many people are not showing up or voting for Trump out of the idea that they also think that neither Haley or DeSantis have a chance? What if one of them had dropped out earlier and endorsed? I think that the issue also is that I wish the other GOP candidates who dropped out, none of them really had any real chance or star power, but I wish that they had all decided on backing either Haley or DeSantis. In my opinion, Haley. But I wish that would have been what would have happened. Because while I want us to stop Trump in the general election, I also want us to stop Trump from just being the nominee. Like, I want it to be an impossibility that Trump could even run.
I mean, it's just crazy how he hasn't gone to jail yet. Like, the dude has 91 felonies against him. Mm-hmm. Like, I stole a candy bar in 1997, and I'm still probably facing deportation for that. Like, it's insane how the system works. And you know something? No, I don't think any of the other candidates would have been able to beat him because, I mean, it was a really cold night in Iowa. So only like 100,000 people voted, and they called it within 30 minutes of the election, like of the the votes being closed. So a lot of people just went home. So honestly, I personally think Trump could have won even bigger had it not been all these factors of like they would have won bigly if it hadn't been for the factor of the weather and the election being called so quickly. Which I've heard other people talk about this, and like as Democrats, as leftists or whatever, we need to like pay attention to that too, because there's a lot of elections where there's like Joe Biden would already be winning and they'd be like, all right, it's 30 minutes, Joe Biden won, which would make people go home. So, it might take votes away from Bernie or whoever else might be running, So, I mean, whatever. Trump was having such a huge lead that they were like, whatever.
Well, it's also a little different because the Iowa caucus doesn't work the same as a primary. So there weren't any ballots. An Iowa caucus, a caucus is people sitting in a room discussing who it is that they're voting for. And then
I saw that putting in like in a popcorn bucket.
Yeah, so the people in the room get to a consensus, and that's how delegates are distributed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The Dominican caucus would have been in tin cans. We all would have put our votes in little tin
cans.
Yeah. Pero mira, no hay cookies. Un voto para patrón otra vez, coño.
Coñazo. But what's crazy is that, Trump even told, I think it's a little insane the way that Trump speaks to his base, and that it's not alarming to them, because the night before, Trump said, I know it's going to be cold out there. Listen, just make sure you get out to the caucus. Even if you pass away after, it'll be worth it because you voted for me. And I'm like, that's not concerning.
He's so stupid. He doesn't realize he also needs those people to be alive in
November.
You can't grow new voters in 6 months.
I mean, I'm not gonna say I'm interested. That's a morbid thing to say, but I mean, I wonder how many voters Trump lost during the pandemic.
A lot.
Oh,
I would
a lot.
guarantee it. I would guarantee, because, his base was obviously the more skeptical, and definitely the percentages are going to be that he lost. There's so many factors into why he lost. That's definitely another one that people don't talk about enough.
But something else also is that there are brown and black people who support Donald Trump, and brown and black people are the ones who were most susceptible to dying from COVID complications, and brown and black people tend to live in areas where their votes don't really matter that much. Right. So will it matter? Probably not.
Especially when you talk about, think about that person. They live in a place like New York or a populated state where their vote, if they're a Trump supporting Dominicans, which I think all of us are probably prone to know a couple, they're in a blue state where their vote literally doesn't matter.
Yeah. I pride myself on not knowing a couple.
None?
Unless some of my cousins have something to tell me. But I have 65 of them. I haven't gotten through.
I guarantee you one of them is a Trump supporter.
Well,
I got family that's like Trump adjacent, where like they're Democrats, but if they make another $1 million, we're gonna lose them. We're gonna lose them. They're almost at the tax bracket. We're like, Trump does got some ideas, and I'm like, oh no.
All right, so moving on. Speaking of Trump, he has been in and out of courts. He's back in court with E. Jean Carroll for defamation after he was already found liable for sexual assaults. But he's arguing in his court cases that presidents. He says all presidents, but we know he means him. Trump is arguing in court that presidents should have absolute full immunity and never be able to be prosecuted by the law. Why are Republicans in office not ringing the alarm bell when he says something like that?
I mean, I would say that it's because they're afraid of him. But if he really believes that, I think Joe Biden should get on it right now.
Trump's legal team was arguing that Trump could even send SEAL Team 6 to kill a political opponent.
Right.
And it's like, well, you're arguing that that's the president's power, but his base also believes that he's still the president.
Indeed.
If I was Biden, I wouldn't assassinate Trump, but I leave like a horse's head with my name on it in his bed, just to like give him a message, like I shouldn't even be in trouble for that. You know what I mean?
In
like,
his bed, Trump doesn't look like he sleeps.
Next to his toilet where he's always hate truthing. Like,
Right, truthing. I was gonna say tweeting, but you're right. Yeah,
truthing. And no, he's his fan base are just
They're gonna do what he says.
They're gonna do what he says, and it doesn't matter how. Again, it doesn't matter how. It's like the more convictions and the more he's becoming like their representative of like the enemy of the state. And they won't come down on him for his immunity claims because honestly, they want him to come into office to push every agenda that he wants without any kind of backlash.
Check,
Yeah, a second presidency from Trump would be it would be catastrophic. I know people keep saying that, but
fascist state.
So moving on, immigration is always a topic of political discord, especially during an election cycle. With Trump in the race and governors like Greg Abbott of Texas and DeSantis in Florida passing some of the most egregious anti-immigrant legislation that we've seen, the focus seems to be on demonizing a particular group of people, the men in this room, Latinos. But reports show that there are actually a record number of Chinese people who are fleeing Chinese communism showing up at the southern border, as well as people from northern Africa who are fleeing to Panama and coming up the same way. But people like the Chinese are having a much easier time getting asylum. So why do you think that Latinos are the group being demonized?
Man, skin color, the colorism, and it's also the myth of like the good immigrant. You know, a lot of people have that myth that just because like it's an Asian immigrant, they're gonna economically move up quicker, and the Latinos are the ones that just like mooching off. You know, it's all these stereotypes that we have on us, and it's easier to paint a picture of the scary brown guy that's coming across the border to come and get you. You know, and we're still a very large enough population that people will see us more. You know, I don't think the Asian population is that large. Like, that they're like, oh, I see an Asian every. You know what I mean? For Latinos, They see them everywhere, so it's easier to paint the picture like we're coming in, we're taking over.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some truth to the entire like well-behaved, the model minority.
Model minority.
Yeah. But the reason why the Chinese immigrants who are showing up at the southern border are able to stay is because China does not take back refugees who leave the country. So even if America wanted to deport them, there's nowhere to send them because China refuses them. So America is technically stuck with them. So America just gives them asylum.
Also, doesn't America recognize people from a communist country a lot easier for a pathway? That's why people from Cuba for a long time got priority when it comes to their status. So there's also like, since China's like a communist country, that they're able to get a pathway quicker.
It's easy to demonize us because, again, this is a country built off white supremacy. And, you take a lot of those tropes of the scary guy coming over the border to take your land, to take your woman. And the Asian immigrant doesn't play into that trope. They are looked at in the American white supremacist conscious as a non-threatening sort of immigrant. So it's easy for the Fox News crowd to paint us as scary, as invaders, all those words about that Trump himself uses to describe immigrants. He's not going to talk about Asian immigrants in those same ways. And it's not going to hit the same for his audience, for them to be spoken about in that same way. They want him to speak about us that way because, like you said, they see us everywhere. We have a big presence. We're becoming more known. We are the scary immigrant to the white supremacist subconscious, not the Asian immigrant. They don't see them that way.
Mm-hmm. And then, unfortunately, like the Haitian and African, all of them are completely like erased. Like they're not even trying.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you don't even hear about our black brothers and sisters who are immigrating here. They're also like kept out of the conversation. And it's like we need to look out a little bit. Like whenever I talk about immigration on my TikTok or whatever, I try to also give people understanding that this is happening around the world. Like, the European Union are helping each other set up blockades to keep people from Africa from crossing the English Channel to get into the UK or, whatever they're also people in Africa are escaping climate change and atrocities created by the U.S. and the Western nations. And once again, they're meeting the same evil from these governments setting up, militarizing their border. So it's like it's a global issue that we're having. And honestly, we need to stop at we need to figure out a way as the global South to unite and just be like, you're not going to keep taking our resources. You're not going to keep ruining our countries to the point that you're ruining our countries and we're trying to come for safety and you're keeping us out. Like, you're fucking us both at
what's
home and
happening
abroad.
is that the people at the top, right, of course, are benefiting from those systems. They're benefiting from the people being oppressed, and people don't really live in democracies the way that we do. Even countries that do have democracies, like America is such a young country, and I feel like people really forget that democracy is an experiment. This is new. And the countries that are still in the early phases of experimenting with democracy are very easy to topple over because America comes in and fucks things up, and the people who are at the top are able to survive and coast by while everyone that's at the bottom is struggling. And then we blame and demonize those people for trying to survive. Meanwhile, what I just paid on the subway to get to the studio is what someone is earning for 2 weeks of pay in Guatemala.
Right.
It's wild.
Right. And we shouldn't, to me, you should always make sure we don't invisibilize certain communities in this struggle. We shouldn't be pitting each other against different types of immigrants. People have different struggles. People come here in different ways. And like you said, it's that economic incentive. You think the Koch brothers wouldn't want to import cheap labor and have Guatemala wages here in America? That's what the system that they want. We have to, like you said, unite and come to a consensus of how we're going to treat these people that are continuously moving because we're destabilizing their governments.
I actually do, though, think that it's important to discuss the distinctions between how we treat different immigrants. There's a lot more that we could say about that, but let's move on. Okay, so this week I posted a video that went viral of a man who confronted a doctor who allegedly sexually assaulted his wife 7 years prior. This happened at a conference, and people in the audience, made up of mostly women, could be heard saying that this wasn't the right time or place for this interaction.
This motherfucker sexually assaulted my wife 7 years ago. So you have to be a fucking man, motherfucker. Now you know what you did. You know your wife and you touched my wife 7 years ago in New York. Don't be an asshole, bitch.
So is there such thing as a right or wrong time when it comes to confronting a predator?
There is no wrong time. There is no wrong time, man. I listen, you did something, I'm coming in the middle of dinner at your house and be like, hey, listen, your husband did this shit. You know what I mean? Because we try to go through the system, we try to go through the courts, and it's just it's set up sometimes to fail the victim. You know what I mean? And sometimes the only recourse that we have is public opinion. So coming in and bury somebody in front of their coworkers and their colleagues, people who are enabling this kind of behavior, is the only thing you can do. That's why when people go at an award show, and be like, you're burning the world, that's the one time oh my God, a disruptor. But we've been talking about it for months and it doesn't get on the news at all.
It has to disrupt or else it doesn't have effect.
It doesn't have an effect.
And I agree. I don't think there's a right or wrong time to, I'm a wild Dominican cat. If I knew somebody who did something to a woman that I know and love, I'll catch you anywhere, I think that, like you said, we can't rely on the system to do us justice, especially you're talking about in cases of sexual assault against a woman by a man in power, by a man who's at a conference speaking. So he's
being defended by other people in power, whether they be women. He's being defended by them.
So what can you do?
I actually think what they didn't notice in that room, I don't know if you got to see the video that I'm talking about, but in the room, the people who are saying this isn't the right time, I kind of felt bad for them because they were practicing the same power dynamic that got this woman into the situation that she was in to begin with, because she was his student, and now you're here listening to him speak and you feel the need to immediately defend him.
What that shows you is that patriarchy is the default. And so when you behave that way, people take that as the general barometer of defending this man is how we've set society. And it is sad, but it's good to recognize that we have that bias in society, that people are by default going to go one way. We need to support women in these situations. And, I feel for both of them, the woman who went through this and the husband who felt so incensed that this dude caught a guy in public, because it's not easy to do that either. It's not easy to run up on somebody in public. That's a sign of a lot of...
They paid to go to the conference just to smack
Hey, listen, worth it.
No, that's a sign of a lot of trauma,
Yeah.
to have gone through it and to have planned it out. So
I actually think that what happened, because the guy ended up like coming into my comments and he was like, "Can you tag me? Because I want to answer all these questions."
the guy who ran up on him?
Yeah. I tagged him in the video. And he was, I'm pretty sure, because he's from Brazil and he immigrated here. And he told the guy, like, "You're lucky we're not in Brazil because I can get away with murder in Brazil." He showed a lot of restraint because he only slapped him up. But he was in Brazil when it happened. So, like, they were there's nothing that he could have done. And his wife provided proof that she filed a report to the university and no one did anything about it. So this is the first time that they had seen him since that had happened.
Yo, this dude got a tourist visa just to come slap someone up in the U.S. Business or pleasure? Oh, it's both. It's a little bit of both. It's a little bit of both. But let me tell you something. The thing about going through the courts is that it's also scary for other people to come out when they see how much, you have to get a lawyer and go through this process and have to, like, recount your story in such a public way, that when somebody has the fortitude and the nerve to go and embarrass this person publicly, it gives other victims the opportunity to maybe write in the comments, things that they might not have. They could write it anonymously or do something like that, and it'll expose this person. Like, one of the things that still blows my mind, I don't know if people really remember this. Like, do you remember what brought down Bill Cosby?
Was the joke by
Hannibal Buress.
Yeah, by Hannibal
It was
Buress.
a stand-up joke that wasn't even recorded. It was audio, and somebody leaked it of him talking about, "Oh, y'all don't like me, but you love Bill Cosby after all he did to those women that have gone to court." And people were like, "Wait, Bill Cosby, women have taken Bill Cosby to court for sexual assault?" And that's what opened. It was like, people were like, "Why are you doing this to Bill Cosby? He's 70." And Hannibal's like, I was just talking at a public show. I didn't think this was gonna happen.
That's crazy.
I
didn't even know that.
It's kind of power that finally putting stuff out into the public like that can have the effect. It also takes some people some time to realize what actually happened to them.
Yeah.
Early 20s, you're just you're on your own for the first time, becoming aware of the world. And older people, will take advantage of that naivete that you come onto the world with, and it takes you a while to realize, oh, this is a much older person. This wasn't consensual. This wasn't, So, yeah.
All right, moving on. Speaking of getting older, Gen Z is reportedly terrified of turning 30. Users on social media are talking about their fear of not making enough money, being able to find a home, or even their fear of losing their physical appearance. Studies show that Gen Z is also aging faster than previous generations. So why do you guys think that this generation is so scared of getting older, or is this just something that happens to everyone?
I'm going to take this one because I want to tell the Gen Zs, being 30 is lit, it really is. And I think you really have two things going on here. One is universal and one is specific to Gen Z, right? You could tell when a president goes in and then when they come out, how different they look, right? They look like they've aged 20 years. Yeah. And, Gen Z really went through something like that when it hit COVID. Many of them were hitting those formative years and they lost time of their life. And, I think a lot of them wear it on themselves, the things that they've gone through. It's very traumatizing. To us millennials, it was like, all right, the third or fourth global event we've lived through, great, another one. Yeah. And for them, it was a very new experience to actually live through one of these things that people only spoke about to them as kids. And so I think a lot of them are wearing that psychological weight on themselves physically in a way that we're not, because we've seen this 4 or 5 times already. And the other one is that, I think there is a universal, like, not wanting to get old. Like, I'm 36, I'm still a Toys R Us kid. Like, I'm not playing around. Like, I kept that inner child in me alive to a degree that I feel like, it keeps you youthful. It keeps you energized. I have a little girl. I could run around with her. Being old is not the worst thing in the world. I feel like at 36, I'm old as fuck at this point.
What?
No, for real. And I feel like the Gen Zers...
My back be hurting.
My back be hurting. My back is hurting right now.
Now. These chairs are great, but my back is not.
and these poor kids, the Gen Zers, they're going through the same thing we went through. they don't know what life is like. They're coming into their own. They don't know how to make money. But for us, we were living in a time where all this culture was universalized in a place. We could go to MTV. Like, if you wanted to know what was cool, you turn on the few cable channels, the only music everybody listened to. Now there's so many different things that the kids don't even know where to turn. The kids want to know what's cool, and they don't even know what's cool because they don't know where to go to look for what's cool. And for us, we already had that served up to us.
I actually have a thought on that, but I want to hear from Che.
Man, this has been my favorite topic for the last week and a half because, like, I always tell people, we millennials, we had, our childhood was by no means easy. I grew up undocumented. We had a lot of things that our communities that are tough. So I'm not saying, people always look back at the time that was with nostalgia when it really was very complicated. You romanticize it. So I'm not trying to romanticize my youth too much. But we live in a world before the internet and after. We are that generation. There was no internet really when we were born. It was not accessible in our house. No. Hell, if we had a computer, you could turn it off and walk away from the computer.
I had a computer.
But you didn't spend all day on it. You went on AOL when nobody was using the phone.
We thought about it, but
when nobody was using the phone. We had a little bit of a youth where we didn't have to worry about the global issues of the world constantly. Do you know what I mean? We actually, I went to clubs where I actually had to develop a personality. You know what I mean? There was no dating apps. I had to go out there and actually be charming in order to get someone. So I had a pretty fun up until my 20s. Housing was cheap enough that you could still get a good job, maybe $9 an hour and get a home up until 2008. Like, there was a lot of things that we had going for us that gave us hope. And we were, enjoying life a little bit. But then, 01, 08, then, Trump and Gen Z have only grown up under
Trump
now has been in our zeitgeist as a politician for 10 years.
Yeah.
10 years. If you're 26, that started when you were 16.
Yeah.
So, and then before that was you already were fucked on the housing market.
Most of Gen Z is 22, 23 right now. It's
up to 26.
Yeah.
So they've grown up in a very chaotic inside on the internet. I mean, this is gonna sound totally cheesy, but I was watching on YouTube videos of the Weather Channel back in the 90s. I might have been stoned, so I just need relaxing music and something. And the graphics back in the 90s for the Weather Channel was today is gonna be 85 and partly cloudy. But now you watch the Weather Channel, they have AI showing you a tree going through someone's house and impailing them this could happen to you. And I'm you understand? Everything has been amplified to scare you.
Yeah.
So
I also think when you were talking about that and how much they have at their fingertips, you would think that it would make people, I don't know. I think that you would think it would have a positive effect on people, but I actually think that most of Gen Z, I wouldn't be surprised if they feel the doom and gloom of the world, not just because we now live in a 24/7 hour news cycle with fucking not just CNN, but also the Shade Room. And it's constantly needing to keep up with stuff and having to feel that pressure and stress. But also it's you feel like you've seen the world. A couple months ago, Paris was trending. And so there were just a bunch of videos talking about, and so it's oh, well, I don't want to go to Paris now because people are saying it's gross and I don't want to go here and I'm good. I can see everything on TikTok. And it's oh, well, I've already seen everything. I've already done everything. Yeah. Even if it's just in my mind. So what's left? Gen Z's definitely been robbed of having a world that still has exploring.
That it's not stressing you out.
Yeah.
I mean, they're very aware from a young age of what things they're up against, when you see young LGBTQIA members being they don't want me to exist in North Carolina. I'm you shouldn't be worrying about that. You should be worrying about being in high school and, and living your life. But now they know that they're being attacked, that their preferences are being attacked. And you're I feel sorry, that at 14, you already know you're under attack.
Yeah. I also, Gen Z, Botox works.
What's the solution?
Just want to let you guys know.
Our new sponsor.
Botox is preventative. It doesn't reverse things. So if you feel stressed, you should get it now. All right, moving on. So everyone knows what happened with Melissa Barrera on the Scream project. She was dropped from Scream after being very outwardly supportive of the Palestinian people. Soon after Melissa Barrera was dropped the next day, Jenna Ortega announced that she was leaving the project. And then a week later, the director of Scream said that he had left the project because he did not agree with how things had been handled. So now people are turning to former star of Scream, Neve Campbell, and asking her, well, are you going to go back to Scream? And recently at a film festival, she said she wouldn't be surprised if they started calling her again, but that they would need to give her an offer that was adequate to what she brought to the film. When it comes to being paid, I understand that. But now that participating in Scream, to me, feels like it's become a little political. Should she go back? Even if they offer her the world, would it undermine Melissa Barrera and the way that she was let go if Neve Campbell returns to star in the film?
I don't know if it undermines it, but it's whether the issue is big enough to her. Like, if, to me, as somebody who supports Palestinian rights, you probably couldn't write me a check big enough, because I agree with you that it's become politicized. And if you were to go back to the film, it does make a political statement. And so it's whether to Neve Campbell the issue is worth whatever bag they want to give her. I don't think it would undermine it, because the sacrifice has been made over the issue. But it does matter whether the issue is big enough to you to accept or deny a check, no matter how big it is, whether it matters to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it does. It is kind of an insult on the two Latinas who spoke their voice and then, got...
I didn't even get to that part, but yeah.
And now you got like this white woman's like, yeah, I'll come back and I'll take over the... It just feels like... honestly, I stopped. I didn't even watch the new ones.
Okay,
you know what I mean?
let me just listen.
Did you see them?
Scream is, in my opinion, this is a heartbreaking story to me. Scream is one of my favorite film franchises of all time.
The original one even?
All of them.
Okay.
I love the franchise in general. Even the ones that people hate, I love. But the thing is, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega brought them their biggest box office opening ever, and they dropped them immediately over politics. I think it would be really disappointing for Neve Campbell to go back, because so many Scream fans are young now, and they're saying it doesn't matter who stars in it. We're not going to watch it because the people who are making it don't support Palestine.
Yeah, and it, honestly, it just even in my heart, like, I know Neve Campbell, I've seen the original one, but like, just knowing like Latinas were leading this and getting the box office made me feel good. I'd be like, oh, look at that. They gave a franchise, to two people of color, and it crushed. Usually you don't get that kind of, like, when they give Captain America shield to the black actor, I forget his name,
On Disney Plus.
Yeah, people lost their minds. You know what I mean? They were like, what is this? And they hated. How was it?
Scratch that. And I said no one watched it.
No one watched. I mean, I saw two episodes of it. I didn't even see when he got the shield. It was so boring. But people who stuck to the end were the racists who wanted to see where this was going. Like,
wow.
So it's tough when you give like the lead to someone and they wind up crushing it.
Yeah. Last topic. Madonna is being sued by concert attendees who filed a class action lawsuit against the singer, Live Nation, and the Barclays Center after Madonna started her concert 2 hours late. Lots of pop stars and rock stars are notoriously late. So when does it cross the line, and does this lawsuit have any merit?
I mean, as a performer and a stand-up comedian for 16 years now. Yeah, 16 years. I know some people are like, I don't even know who you are. I don't know who you are. All right? Sorry. People always got to say that shit to me. Anyways, I have never been late to a show. Never. Never ever, because you kidding me? You are there to see me. And also, you're the headliner. You don't even go on when the show starts. So you are purposely being late. There is an opening act that does about 40 minutes. So even on worst case scenario, the show starts at 8, you can get there at 8:35 and still be okay. Hey, give a little while we set up the next act. It's just ridiculous that any artist has such an ego that they're like, I'm going to be 2 or 3 hours late. Fuck you, I will never go see you again. I wouldn't even try. Even if I found out, I'm too hurt already. I'm too hurt. I don't believe you. I don't trust you.
So personal story is I've seen Lauryn Hill in concert, and she was not late. She came right on time.
You were at one of those shows? One of the few?
I've seen her in concert, and she was on time.
How did you feel about Lauryn Hill saying recently, she's like, y'all lucky I make it on this stage?
Nah, she bugging though. That's crazy because, I agree with you. Look, you people pay to see you, right? So, I think that's lawsuit with Madonna is a little crazy because, again, you have a starting, opening show, and it says that she didn't show till 2 hours later. Like, was there nobody there for 2 hours later? Or,
No, the show started 2 hours late.
You see, I mean, to me, that's a little difficult because was it that she was late? Was it lights? Was it something else? There's stagecraft behind.
Come on.
I don't know the truth. That's the thing. I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And when you go to a show, I understand you're expecting it to go a certain time, but concerts start late, whatever.
I feel like it's a little shitty because it's not it's not Beyonce, it's not Bad Bunny or Ariana Grande. Like, it's not anyone whose audience is made up of majority younger people. Madonna's of a certain age. That's not to be ageist. Like, she's great.
Yeah.
But her audience is also older, and it's like these people don't want to be out in the middle of Brooklyn till 1 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out how to get home.
Yeah.
And people are like, we didn't get to watch the show. We had to leave. Like, we paid babysitters. We paid nannies. Like, we gotta go. Whoopi Goldberg on The View was very dismissive of this. And she's like, just you people shouldn't go to concerts. I'm like, that's really fucked up of you to say.
Poor people who can't afford to.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you guys heard about this, but our cousin actually got in trouble. Romeo Santos.
No.
A couple weeks ago, he was caught up in some trouble after he was 8 hours late to his concert in Venezuela.
What was the reason?
The attorney general of Venezuela is investigating him for abusing the trust of the audience, who, by the way, stayed there and waited till 4 o'clock in the morning for him to go
8
on
hours,
stage.
bro. That's a work shift.
Well, he already. I mean, the fact that he showed up at 4 a.m. Like, kudos to you for showing up.
He did show up 8 hours late.
He showed up 8 hours late.
Wow.
Put on a show at 4 a.m.
4 a.m. until the sun came up.
I would only respect that if something happens.
He was caught up in some trouble with the person who organized the show, who, by the way, is also a cartel leader who's been wanted by multiple countries, including the Dominican Republic, who flew Romeo Santos there on his private jet.
Okay, see, so he was just caught up in a little situation.
In some drugs. He was just caught up in some shit.
It was 8 hours that he needed to stay alive, so thank you for showing up alive. That's what I liked.
No, that is crazy.
I feel bad for the people of Venezuela. I mean, I understand because Romeo Santos is a very big Latino artist, and he doesn't get to travel to places like Venezuela often. And it's like, if he's here, I'm pretty sure it was a free show also, I think.
And he brings lights. Have you seen his concerts in DR?
And he brings lights.
He literally brings his own generators to show. So sometimes when he's performing in Latin American country, that's the only light they're gonna see for a few hours. So
bugging.
Well, no, I mean in some areas you should see.
Oh my God.
They have lights, but you should see. Sometimes he puts on concerts that are so big that the local town cannot generate the kind of power that they need. So this guy, they've done drone shots of zooming out, and he's just a little ball of light in just this field of darkness. Wow. And it's beautiful that he does that.
That's a beautiful analogy.
I'm going to look this up on YouTube once we're done.
Yes, I'm not shitting on
that's a beautiful analogy. Romeo Santos is a ball of light in a sea of darkness. Which is the Latino community.
As you zoom out, it goes bananas, baby.
Is there anyone that you guys would wait hours for? Because honestly, going to the Beyonce concert was a commitment of time. Because Beyonce's show was 3 hours, and she did not start till 9 p.m. She started right on time, but she was on stage from 9 to about 12:30, and then getting out of the arena, it was now 1:30. I was not back to where it was that I was staying until almost 3 o'clock in the morning. And we had to get to the stadium at 7. So we had to leave at 6. I dedicated about 9 hours of my life to seeing a Beyonce concert. Would never do that again.
I also saw Beyonce one time. So I was big on the concert life. So I agree. It is a commitment. It's a whole day. I don't think there's anybody I would wait 8 or 9 hours. I mean, I would go to a concert that took all that time.
Yeah.
But I'm not waiting in a stadium for 8 hours, not even for Romeo Santos. So anybody knows, nah.
Romeo Santos was my first concert. I'm not waiting to see him. I've had enough.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll give Romeo Santos 3 hours.
Of waiting?
I'll give him 3 hours max.
I will give him 3.
I'll give Bad Bunny 45 minutes, and then Mike Towers, he better be 5 minutes early, because if he's not in there on time, I'm.
So that is the end of this week's episode. Thank you to our guests for joining me. Che, you have some upcoming shows. Would you like to let the people know where you'll be?
Thank you for this spontaneous opportunity. Yes, I got a big show. I will be in Cap City in Austin, Texas, March 8th and 9th. It's my first time headlining a major comedy club, so please help me sell it out. So come on out to that. And for tickets and everything else that I'm doing, follow me on Instagram or TikTok at My Undocumented Ass.
And we'll put the ticket link in the description of the episode.
Dope.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Hector, anything you would like to promote? Shout out to your daughter.
Jersey politics. Make sure you pay attention to the upcoming primary and my baby girl.
All right, guys. I will see you here next week. Till then, take care. Love you. Bye.